Welcome to the Once a Cowboy, Always a Cowboy podcast, where you hear the history of Chaney football from the unique perspective of Coach Ron Berdis. All right, Ron, today we're going to talk about the 1988 season, and last time we kind of went through everything that took place in 87 and laying the groundwork, some of the successes, some of the challenges that you had to deal with. So as you finished year one and you settle into going into year two, what was your mindset going into year two, and what was that off season like?
Well, after 87, we obviously recognized that we were lacking offensively, but there were circumstances, as I indicated, in losing your quarterback and that type of thing, and a new coach and kind of a new system, new terminologies and procedures and practice deals and all that. So now that the newness had passed and approaching, we try to objectively as a staff look at it and say, okay, this is where, we improved, and this is where we really lacked. And obviously offensively, as I mentioned, it was an area that we needed to approach. So we went about doing some training film and meeting often, and we try to get in a direction, knowing that we were going to have the quarterback that we went into 87 with Turek coming back, and being, hopefully being healthy. That was our mindset. Let's attack the off season. We were hosting some clinics for some of the youth leagues. We were 3 days a week lifting in a program that we were constantly tweaking. Mm-hmm. Lifting program and testing and conditioning 2 days a week. So we were going year round between lifting, conditioning, community service, academics, study tables and progress reports. The program was in gear. Okay, yeah. It was up and running, and now, let's focus on getting better. And as I mentioned, offensively was the paramount area as far as attacking, and so that's where we were at.
So when you talk about a couple things there, I know when I was coaching for you, we were 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, lifting, usually January till April. Soon as spring hit, we'd add in those 2 extra days, and we were going 5 days a week. Was that kind of the same format that you had in the early days as you did in the later days as well?
Yeah, initially there was no 30-day non-contact time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we went right into it. We went right into it, and I and don't call me a liar, but I want to say that we started maybe conditioning right away too, and maybe as the years progressed, we kind of backed off of that and started the conditioning phase at the first of the year.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure in November we were at it 5 days a week. At the very least, we were getting together 5 days a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So And also, as I mentioned earlier, doing some things on the weekends also as well. So we wanted what we wanted to establish was the commitment to be so large and so intense that if you were going to be part of that brotherhood, then you wanted to see your investment through.
Yeah. And I think that's through my coaching career and just watching other coaches, you can see that philosophy. So there was a definite philosophy of, and I'm going to take some liberties here, there's no compromise. These are the standards. If you meet the standards, you can be with us. Otherwise, you're just maybe need to go find somewhere else to be. And it was, I would rather have my guys that are 100% in and have 35 of them that are going to war instead of just having large numbers and, maybe they're dipping a toe in or maybe they're half committed. And that was a distinct philosophy. And you said that last time we spoke as well. Is that accurate? Like that was kind of your mindset?
Yeah. And chasing kids in the hall. I mean, where, a kid missed a workout, he was accountable. I mean, he had to be accountable for that. He's coming in. Where were you? Why weren't you there? And the worst scenario at that time, and maybe during the entire tenure, was for a kid to get me sending another player during the course of the day up to a classroom and say, and this was mind games. The coach wants to see you, and that walk from the classroom to the office
Right.
Where my office was, really kind of set a tone.
Right.
And and fortunately that, and I'm not telling you that everybody was an angel, but we wanted to instill in our players that because they were an athlete, they didn't get preferential treatment. Okay, they wanted to think that. I think at the beginning, hey, I get out of study hall, okay, and I could come and hang out down the gym. All right. Don't be late. Don't be late to class. Don't be late to reporting to the gym. I mean, they had to march to a different drummer, and they knew that, and that was part of being in the program. Now, what made that such a hard sell at times was the fact that we weren't having success during the season. In '87, and then in '88 we got better, but the wins weren't coming more frequently.
Right. So you've said, you said we a couple times talking about your staff. Who was on your staff at that time, and can you tell me a little bit about those guys? Was there much turnover from year one to year two?
No. Year two, we actually added a few guys. I want to say the core was we added Mike Popio.
Okay.
And him and Mike Dobrin were running the defense, and they were doing a great job. I mean, they really were. Defensively, I thought, even in '87, I thought we played pretty well, and in '88, we scored more points than we did in '87, but we were still lacking, as I said. But defensively, we lost. I don't know, 5 games by total of 13 points.
Mm-hmm.
So, defensively, and defense is easier to transition, because it's pretty much, it's pretty much, go out and play.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to sell Mike short on their preparation, because there was a lot of preparation involved, but it's all about letting it fly.
Yeah.
And that's what they were teaching, and the kids certainly bought into that. Offensively, we were still feeling our way around.
Okay. So your staff stays the same. I think we went through the West Side saga there, and it 46 players. I think large number of seniors. So you have another veteran group that have a year under their belt with you, have an off season with you, come into the year, and I'm sure there's some real expectations. If I'm correct, Paul Lamongi, Dave Del Boccio, and Dan Turek were your captains. Do you have anything you could speak to some of those guys or the seniors in general?
Yeah, like I said, getting Danny back, was a big shot in the arm for us. And Paul Lamongi was just an outstanding player, and when he graduated, came right on staff. I mean, filled in, and he's developed into a really good football coach. He's out in Nebraska, and got one state championship and a couple runner-up under his belt. That was a big plus. And Gary Bellish, was kind of the quiet one out of the group. He just a steady and hard-nosed, really good football player.
Okay. Dave Del Boccio?
Yeah. Botch was, I don't believe he's in the Hall of Fame, but should be.
Okay.
Really an excellent football player. Played fullback, undersized, but could snap trap for and take it home.
Yeah.
And defensively, just a ball hawk and all over the field.
What did he play defensively?
He played linebacker.
Okay, inside back, right?
Yeah.
I would assume. Okay. So week 1 approaches. Open up with Fitch once again, week 1, and you go down 28-16. What I guess going into that game, what was your feeling having played them? You mentioned last time a number of years prepping as a defensive coordinator. Now you have a year under your belt as head coach. Do you remember anything that you thought going into that game for year 2?
Yeah, I don't want to say as shallow as this sounds, but I think it speaks to the mindset that going into the game, we felt we could be competitive, and we were. Mm-hmm. And I think coming out of the game, we felt, certainly wasn't the result that we wanted, but we scored 16 points and made life difficult for them.
Yeah.
And we're in a direction.
Okay.
So I think that was our takeaway from the game. That we're not, the never satisfied was always going to be there. Okay, that was always going to be the attitude, but there was the fact that we were in a direction. I think you got to be able to take some sugar to the kids. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's what we were selling.
Yeah, and so next week, and that's going to kind of lead me into a question I have here down the line. The next week, you go and play Boardman. You lose to Boardman once again, who at the time is Bill Bourne, right? So, you have Hartman, Bourne, back to back. Life's pretty tough those first couple, and then you go in to play South, and you win that game 22-12. So playing Fitch, playing Boardman. I don't know what your feelings going into Boardman, but I got to figure it's probably a similar thing. Like, hey, we're going to have to play a great game to beat these guys. Maybe we need a little help, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think Bill made a comment after the game. It's really a tough way for, a scrappy Chaney team to start.
Mm-hmm.
And we've spoken to this before, that the schedule was tough. I mean, but it wasn't anything anybody else hadn't encountered as far as Ed, Red, and chess. But I don't recall what that Boardman score was. Do you have that?
You know what? I do not have that score.
I don't know if that was the 14-12.
No, I think in 89,
it was
you go 14-12, and 89 is just a whole nother situation to talk about, because there's so many of those 14-12 nip-tuck games that just don't go your way.
Yeah.
I think this one was a little bit tougher. In Boardman, I think you mentioned this a while ago, has been throughout the years a tough one to get for Chaney in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fairness to the kids, again, I think coming out of Fitch, losing 87-7-0, and then losing in a competitive game. The kids are, I'm sure, pretty deflated going into Boardman. Okay.
Yeah.
So, in a good Boardman team, I mean, not so or mediocre. So, again, we come out of it licking our wounds, and that might have been the team with that was really, really good defensively. I mean, really good. Maybe looking ahead to the league.
Yeah. And so you get into South. One of the things I noticed there was it was a 5 p.m. start. Do you remember playing some twilight or early evening games?
Yeah, I do. Throughout, I mean, the contract with YSU, and was that game at YSU?
It didn't say, but I guess reading throughout.
I got this visual of Boccio breaking a long trap to break that game open, and
well, Boccio rushes for 153 and 2 long TD runs.
Yeah. And I don't think that was at YSU.
So yeah, I mean, I would assume that the City Series having a number of games, right, playing at probably South, Rayen, and YSU periodically, right? So you got Ursuline Mooney, City Series competing at YSU, and then in different times.
South was using up its usefulness. I mean, the stadium.
Yeah.
If that game was played at South, it was probably one of the last years that it was being used.
Okay. One thing I thought was interesting there was Tamron Smith is mentioned in that game. Do you have any recollection? Obviously, YSU great had.
Yeah, he was really good player. Yeah, I mean and South was a good team. That was really an upset. And no one was more shocked than Ron Domesco, who was the coach at the time. But really a good win for us. I mean, really put our kids back on track, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. Having a couple losses, taking one on the chin, getting that win makes everybody feel a little bit better.
Sure.
Coming back the next week. So then you go and play Ursuline, and just some names and some quotes from the game. This is a tight game. Ursuline wins 14-6. Clinton Lynch is mentioned in the game, and Coach Angle says is quoted as, "Lynch is dependable. He's an outstanding player. Chaney came in here and played aggressive football. That is why they call this a backyard rivalry."
Yeah, and Dick's an outstanding coach, West Sider, and grew up with Ed Matey, Joe Lutzy. I mean, those guys used to hang together.
Mm-hmm.
Dick went on to have a great high school and career at Ursuline and at Wake,
I think he was at Missouri.
Oh,
Missouri.
Bad. Yeah, he was at Missouri, and had a great reputation. And I spoke to Dick on the phone frequently. If you needed a game,
yeah,
Dick had the war room where he had everything charted. He can find you a game, and if he didn't think that he could roll over you, then he'll say, "You know what? Play somebody else. We're not going to play." Which is probably why he was keeping us on the schedule. But it was a competitive game, and again, the utmost respect for him. They had a really good football team, and we again, not the results we wanted, but felt good about how we played.
Yeah, and so another name, Diallo Anderson, he's mentioned. So I would assume that would probably be his freshman, sophomore year.
Yeah, and Diallo went to Volney.
Right.
He was on cue to come to Chaney, and just so happened when I got named the head coach, he was in basketball season at the time, and playing for Mike Butch against Chester Leon. They had a game, and I was officiating.
Okay.
And it was he was the man. I mean, he was really a highly talented athlete, and he got kind of gamey, and I teed him in the game, and then he started chirping. And so I tossed him, and his mother was in the stands, and if there was any shot at him coming to Chaney, that was it. But we made it known, and maybe this entered into it.
Did Coach Angle call you and thank you for that?
He should have. But him and Matt Gilchrist were good friends, and you know, I think the fact that Mac was there, you know, he didn't want to be in any shadow. And like I said, I'm sure that me throwing him out of the game and telling his mother to come and get him and take him home didn't sit real well with him, and I'm sure it kind of sealed the deal for him to be an Irish.
Yeah, I bet. It didn't help the cause, that's for sure.
It did not help the cause.
So the following week, you're back in the City Series, and you're facing Rand. You dropped that game 14-7, and some of the notes, it says that you had 2 scoring opportunities in the last 8 minutes. So it's tight, right? And you just couldn't pull it off. How do you keep the kids going, right? How do you kind of you're pushing the envelope, you're challenging them, you're saying, listen, this is the recipe to success. Hasn't happened yet. You know, that's the challenge, right? That's the rub.
Yeah, especially when they're looking to you and saying, and letting you know, hey, we believe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're here for the long run, and we believe, and you know, and they're coming up short, and it became extremely difficult, especially as the season progressed, and it probably culminated down in Steubenville, where we lost a close one, and I know I told you this before, but I remember the kids, Lance Joyan and Lamonji and those guys looking at me and saying, what do we have to do?
Yeah.
I mean, crying to me. What do we have to do? And me standing there thinking I couldn't possibly be more proud of how you represent yourself and how hard you play. So, you know, what do you tell them other than, hey, you got to just hang in.
Yeah.
You got to hang in, and you might not reap any of the benefits, but you'll be the building blocks.
So let me ask you this, right? So, and this is the tough part of being a head coach. You have to constantly send that message and reassure them. You know, who's the one reassuring you? Because that's the tough part. You know, you believe, but at some point, somebody's got to be lifting your chin up off the ground too.
Well, there's no question, and that anytime that success came our way over the years, okay, it was always imperative that it be shared as a coaching staff, okay? Mm-hmm. You know, as the head coach, you're the front guy, okay? You take the heat and you take the glory. You know how that works. And so in answer to your question, who do you go to? Who do you turn to? Your staff, because, and I'm not discounting my wife, you know,
right,
and my
sure,
kids.
Sure.
You know, I mean, certainly they're picking my chin up every night, but we're in this together, and the staff always made it known, hey, you know, we got your back. We're we're here. We got your back, and you know, that's what gets you through it, and the kids feed off of that. Mm-hmm. The kids see that, and they understand that, and they know that you're in it together. You know, I used to give or tell the coaches and the players that I give a player at the end of every year. I did that for the entire tenure, and I would tell them, and I think this is indicative of what we were trying to build together. Was we've won, lost, laughed, and cried together. There's no greater basis for a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the kids saw that, felt that, and believed that, and that's what sustained us.
Yeah, there has to be that oneness to get through those tough times. There's no doubt. And so you end up losing to East 13-7, another tight game. Go back, play Wilson, 10-7, lose. You end up going to West Branch, and you face them for the second year in a row, and you end up winning that game for your second win of the season.
I believe 28-14.
Yeah.
Mac had a 186 day. I mean, just went crazy rushing. And sometimes in the course of seasons, years, there becomes a familiarity, and like you expect to win there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think getting our first win there, like when we came there the following year, we expected to win. I mean, we expected, we beat them last year, and we're better this year.
Yeah.
And we'll beat them this year, and that's how our kids, I think, approached it.
The psychology of it, right? Just the belief. The belief.
Yeah.
So then you go down to Steubenville. Steubenville's ranked first in the Associated Press in Division II. Doesn't look good for you guys. No. At least going into the game, right?
No, it really didn't. But that was where I tried to change some things offensively and tweak some things, and thought that I could, kind of do this on my own.
So what do you mean by that?
Well, when I remember meeting and taking a break and staying back, and the coaches went to watch a youth game.
Okay.
And I stayed back and with the film and just kept looking at film, and thought that I'd put in a little wrinkle offensively, going to one back and double wing and motion and doing some things off of that. And we were really competitive, and defensively we played lights out.
Yeah.
Almost upset the world down there.
Yeah, it was tied 7-7 at halftime.
Yeah.
And it ends up being 17-14 Big Red, but they kicked a field goal with 11 seconds left to win.
Been there before.
Yeah.
Or not before, but it was history repeating itself in the state championship game in '97.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Same type of deal. I mean, remember the game and feeling good about, putting points on down there,
yeah, right.
and that's worse than playing at LSU.
They're called the same, Death Valley, both of them, aren't they?
I think
they both are. Yeah.
It was one. I think LSU used to be called the Pit too, and that's what that was down there. You know, you're not going to get any favors. But our kids played well, and as I said, after that game, that's when they left it all out there. I mean, they played over their head, everything there. What do we got to do? What do we got to do?
Yeah. Then you run into another great team, Mooney, for the season finale. And you lose that one 31-0, and you're quoted as saying, "It's a shame that the seniors had to end this way. Maybe we left it in Steubenville last week."
Which would have been really easy to do.
Yeah.
You know, when I say that, I still have that visual of those guys sitting in that dumpy old locker room at Steubenville and just played out. I mean, out like they're drained, completely zapped, because you ask them to, hey, just leave it all out there, and they did. Again, I'm not making excuses for the 31-0 loss to Mooney. Good football team, really good football team. Probably every bit as good or better than Steubenville. And we just used it up.
Yeah, yeah. So season total, score 114 points, give up 167. Just really, it's not as bad as the next year in terms of how close everything was, but it's you're right there. You know, you're playing top-notch teams in the area and in the region, right? You're going and playing Fitch, Boardman, Ursuline, Mooney, Steubenville.
Yeah.
You know, and playing those teams tough, and just coming up short.
Yeah, I mean, we recognized the schedule was really a grinder, and at the banquet, I would use this analogy a lot, telling these guys, and the parents as well, you have to look at this in terms of taking a hill. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
We're looking to get to the top of the mountain. Okay, and there's heavy sniper fire, machine gun fire coming down, and these guys, 87, 88, and 89, they're throwing themselves over the barbed wire so the next group can advance and get to the top of that hill. And they got it. I mean, like I said, they got it. I heard Chris Samarone, who was one of the captain's big-time players in 89, but played in 88 also. I saw him do an interview, and he said that was one of the things he said. He said, we didn't have a lot of wins, but we set the plate or the table for the success that Chaney would eventually have when they got back on top.
Yeah, and going through it, just talking about it, it seems like it's really dark days, but you're right. You know, over the next couple of years, things really turn around and turn into all that hard work starts to pay the dividends. You know, and that's the tough part is, you preach, you push, you challenge. After year 2, are you doubting at all? Do you have any second thoughts? Or are you thinking, well, maybe maybe we're not doing the right things, or maybe this isn't going to turn around? Did that ever creep in?
I'm thinking in terms of you get better or you get worse.
Mm-hmm.
You never stay the same. Okay, and I thought we're getting better. Okay, and in 89, did it occur to me that maybe you're not getting better? No, I'm not going to sit here and say that doubts didn't creep into my mind. I told you this before. We said, if we can't get, we thought we were in a direction, and I believe that we were. But I would tell the staff often, if we can't get it done in 5 years, I'm talking a transformation, complete transformation, then I'll let somebody else try.
Yeah.
I'll resign. And that wouldn't, and I didn't say that as a matter of, well, I'm going to quit on these kids. I said that as a matter of, I want to give them every opportunity to be successful.
Right. I think that's a good place to stop here for today. What do you have any final thoughts on that 88 season or 88 team?
Other than that, they set the table for 89, and I've said this a number of times. 89 was an excitable time, even though we were 1-9. Okay, we were on the brink of being, the only team up to that point that went over. Okay, and getting the one win under our belt, but how we were playing and how we were losing gave us an anticipation of things to come.
Okay. Well, look forward to talking about that and seeing that transformation.
Yeah.